Hi, I'm Cherise Michelle Davis, and if you don't already know, Pineapple Talks is all about conversations with men and women who play a part in the hospitality industry. I'm always delighted to bring new episodes, and in this conversation, you will hear from Maya Jones. Maya is currently a senior talent acquisition specialist for Hospitality Ventures Management Group in Atlanta, Georgia. Where she is today is not quite where she started, and it isn't even where she thought she'd be. Now, does that sound like your story too? Well, viewers and listeners, get ready to meet Maya and be enlightened as she shares her journey in hospitality. One of the things that I love about this podcast is that I get to give others an opportunity to share their story because I think people's stories are inspiring. So I want to start with getting to know Maya. So before any thought of the hospitality industry, tell us about where you're from, what was life growing up, and just kind of what were you into when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised here. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So actually on the east side in Stone Mountain, lived in the same house for 18 years. So my parents pretty much kept us pretty solid in the same neighborhood. I have about three siblings. I have a stepbrother who is older than me. My sister who is older than me as well, and then I have a younger brother. And family, just from the beginning, has been it's the closest thing to me and one of my biggest support systems. Some people would probably think it's weird how close me and my sister are. We see each other probably like 3 to 4 times a week. So
That is
yeah, so
that's regular.
yeah, no, it is really regular, and you wouldn't think that. I just say, how did we even live in two different cities for 3 years? But it's great, and I love my family, and so they just instilled that into us. My parents just always being there for your family and siblings. And as a kid, I loved cooking. That was my thing. Everybody knew like Maya was gonna cook,
Yeah.
and specifically baking is something that I loved to do. And so like during Christmas, they would like give me baking things to like, cook, and I would always bring dessert to dinner. So I've kind of always been in, I guess, the world of hospitality, just now like a different side. But I love food, and I'm still a foodie. You have food there, I am there.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about my upbringing and where I came from. I'm a Georgia girl, Georgia peach to the heart.
Yes, I love that. I was obviously quite excited when you started talking about baking. I've been eyeing a cinnamon roll from Cinnabon, and
It's
I'm trying to resist the urge. I'm like, if maybe I could save it, that could be my treat, for some other time. But anyway,
just cut it in half. Cinnamon rolls are my mom's weakness. Like
yeah.
she loves anything that has cinnamon in it, especially cinnamon rolls. But Cinnabon has mastered the
Yes,
recipe for
they
cinnamon.
they have. I mean, down to the aroma. Like when you go in the mall and it's
Yes,
like, I mean, you smell it before you get there.
yes, absolutely. But whoever did it, whoever came up with the recipe, is living great right now.
I bet.
Obviously.
I bet. So, kind of on the whole notion of the cooking, that was like the thing that you like to do. So, would you say that that was like your aha moment? When did you realize that I want to study and build a career in hospitality?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would kind of say I fell into hospitality because just growing up, I grew up in DeKalb County, so I did go to South DeKalb schools and stuff like that. Hospitality wasn't a career that was usually mentioned, and so until I think it was my senior year in high school, and my counselor was like, "Okay, so what are we doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to culinary school." Like, I don't know about you, but I'm going to culinary school. And but I had pushback from my dad, because at that time a lot of culinary programs were only considered 2-year programs, and it wasn't considered a full bachelor's degree. And so my dad is big on education, and he was like, "No, you need to go get a bachelor's degree from somewhere, and then you can pursue culinary." And I was like, what? I'm like, geez.
Dad, some of my
Yes.
friends.
Yes. And so my counselor, I was telling her that I was like, well, my dad wants me to get a 4-year degree. I want to go to culinary school. And she actually mentioned, hey, how about you do hospitality? And this was the first time, in my life ever hearing the word hospitality. I had no clue what it meant. So I asked her, what did it mean? And she then started to explain it to me. And at that point, I realized, hey, I could do this. And this kind of coincides with being a chef. I wanted to be a pastry chef at that time. So I said, okay, yeah, definitely, we can do that. So that's how I fell into hospitality. I would probably say the aha moment that I knew like this is what I love was probably, oh, that's hard. I would probably be after college when I was actually a restaurant manager and I was like, oh wow, I genuinely love what I do. And this is part of hospitality. And then too, in that same token, um, being in such a good big size hotel, I was like, there's so much in hospitality that there's to do. And so then that's when I knew I was like, oh, I'm always going to be in hospitality. I can do anything. And I try to tell people that like you can do anything in the world of hospitality. You can be an accountant, you can be a chef, you can be a manager, you can be an investment analyst, and it's all still part of hospitality. So I think after college in my first um, my program through Marriott was when I was like, oh, this is it. But I fell into it because my dad told me I needed a 4-year degree. So that's kind of, how it happened and how I just ended up here.
Yeah, I loved hearing you share about how you fell into it. As you were sharing, it reminded me of my experience in high school and how I was trying to figure out what I needed, what degree I was supposed to pursue. And I do remember the first time I heard the word hospitality, like it did something to me on the inside. It was just like, oh, like it just felt like it
Right.
fit.
Hmm.
And so I'm glad that you had that person in your life to point you in that direction. And I think that's also why it's so important to have people to advise us and
Yeah.
to provide like good counsel. Um, because we make so many decisions and it's just so good when we make them with good advice and people
Yeah.
that are actually hearing the heart of what we're trying to do and that they're able to inspire growth and change and a
Yeah.
new perspective. And so shout out to your counselor
Yeah.
for
She knew
doing
what she was
that.
doing.
Yeah, for doing that. So once you got, where did you end up going to school?
Yeah, so I did go to Georgia State for my undergrad, and got my 4-year degree in hospitality management. So I did go through their hospitality program, and then actually I returned for my master's there last year. Well, 2020, what 2020? Yeah, during the pandemic. So I'm a Panther. They have all my money. So Georgia State hospitality program. This is a
Yeah.
plug. Please go there if you're looking for an undergrad or a master's program. It's great and it's located in the city. I think that's probably the best part is because it's around our industry. You're in hotels, you're in the restaurants. And so yeah, Georgia State, Panther all day.
Yes. So tell us about while you were in school. I guess you can speak on, well, let's your undergrad experience,
Yeah.
about internship opportunities or, what jobs you took while you were in school and just kind of how that um, connected to your career path.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went into school, actually my very first job before going into college, I was in retail, so that is hospitality. And this is the first job. I worked at the little girl store Justice, and that is the moment I realized retail is not for me. Selling in that magnitude, because what I do right now is selling too, but in that magnitude was not for me. But it was great experience, customer service. And so when I went to Georgia State, I did decide to leave Justice. And so I was unemployed for, I probably say the first semester. No, it was like first 2 months of school. And then I actually, outside of the hospitality industry, my very first job was on campus at the daycare. And so another passion of mine is kids outside of hospitality. If there was no such thing as hospitality, I would be a teacher. I would be teaching little kids. Even growing up, that's something that, I would play school with my imaginary students. But I had the opportunity to do work in the daycare, and so that worked really good with my schedule. And so one of our teachers made us go to a job fair for class to get credit, and so it was hosted here on campus, and it was for summer jobs. And there's like, okay, just go network. Sign your name and you'll get the credit. And so I went just going for school. I wasn't really going seeking employment. But it did just happen. This place called Your Pie, which is actually based out of Athens, was opening their first store in Atlanta at the Buckhead location. And so they came seeking, obviously, employees. And so it was something about the booth, and I love pizza. So I was like, free pizza. Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm here. So I helped open that. And that was I would say, my first food service job, and kind of where this whole hospitality fell. And obviously, throughout my 4 years of school, I had other employment opportunities. So after Your Pie, I was at Your Pie, wow, for probably a good 2 to 3 years. And then actually 2 years, come my junior year, I had to go to another job fair. And actually, wait, wow, no, it was sophomore year. I had to go to another job fair for class credits. And the Hyatt Regency was one of the booths at the job fair. And I stopped by, and I was not looking for a job. I had a job. And she's like, oh my God, you should be our hostess for our restaurant. Because I already had the restaurant experience. And at Your Pie, I was the greeter. So the first person when you walk in, hey, what kind of pizza you want? I started your dough and I sent you down the line. And she's like, you would be great for our hostess position. And so me being me, and me being my dad's child, I love working. I said, yeah, let's go. I did the Hyatt Regency for, I would say, a few months. And that was a fun experience because that was my first time in hotels. And that in itself was so amazing to me. I remember the aha moment of hotels. And I was standing in the lobby one day at my shift, and I was looking up because the Hyatt Regency has that atrium, well, the big tower kind of set up. And I said, this place never closes. I remember saying, I was like, wait, it clicks that hotels are just like hospitals. They never close a day. And I was like, I will always have a job. So it only makes sense to stay in a hotel. And so just being at that hotel, there was this sales, I cannot remember her name, but she was an African American woman, and she was the director of sales, and she was like the best in the field. Everyone knew her. So I kind of went to her and used her as her mentor just to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I was talking with her, and she just gave me insight on what she did. I understood at that point sales was not what I wanted to do. But just seeing someone that looked like me in a higher position in a hotel was very appealing. And so I did that hosting for about 6 or so months. And then I went to another job fair. Guys, go to job fairs in college. That's just where you find them. And the Omni CNN Center was one of the booths there. And I did want to go into the front office side. And at that time, the Hyatt Regency didn't have any positions open for front office. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try this at the Omni. And I actually started in PBX, which was probably the best move that I could have done for my whole career in hotels, is because I learned so much. Like, everything goes through those switchboard operators. And that's what I was. You call into a hotel, I'm the one that connects you to so-and-so. Or if the accounting department needs to get in contact with housekeeping, I'm the one that does that. So I learned so much in those 2 years at the Omni that it just built my love for hotels. And then they did promote me to front desk. And so I got to do that for about the last few months of my college career. So I was working my whole college life, and as well as I did an internship at the ACVB, so the Atlanta Visitors Bureau. That was a different side of hospitality, just seeing how they bring the business into my city. They were the reasons why I had a front desk job, right? And so I did the membership coordinator role there. And that was cool to see that side of hospitality and how they have to sell the city and go out and do these
Mhm.
smurfs and stuff like that. So I learned a lot. And that was just a summer internship between my sophomore and between my junior and senior year. And it was a great opportunity to see that. So I've been working.
Yes, I
How
can
long
tell. Yes. Yeah, as you were talking, I'm just like creating images in my mind of what it, what it was like for you. And what I also picked up in your sharing is, just a true passion for hospitality and your energy and your excitement. And I think that that is what people want to experience when they walk into an establishment. Like when you were speaking about your pie, I was like, I would want to see mine when I walk in, or approaching that front desk or answering the phone. And it's those little things. But knowing a little bit about what you do now, I definitely can see how all of those experiences um, is what's allowing you to thrive in the career that you're in
Yeah,
presently.
absolutely. And I think
Yes,
that's one of the biggest things. Just, in the hospitality industry, just gain, as much experience, try those new roles. And that's really what I credit a lot of my knowledge from, is just doing, and it kind of fell into my lap. I just did what my teachers told me to go to a
yeah,
job fair
yeah,
and be open to trying new things. I
yes.
think is a big
I think that's a great nugget is to be open, be teachable, and to just really seize the opportunities. I am curious to know during those years, because it sounds completely positive, like it was just all great, and I did this, and I learned here, and I had fun. But were there moments where you were like, am I in the right field? I don't know if I still want to do this. How did you navigate through the stresses that actually come with being in hospitality?
I would probably I don't think I ever personally second guessed myself the industry, but I would say there were a lot of outside factors. So, one of them, I mean, my padre, my dad is what I call him, my padre. Um, I think he had a vision for me, and I was very blessed to be very smart in school. So I had a high GPA. I did very well, and so I knew he was like, my smartest child is gonna go into hospitality. Like she
Yeah.
could be a doctor. So my dad is in the medical field, and he's like, why can't you go be a doctor or something? And
Yeah.
so kind of that he never actually said that, but you can tell, you can feel the vibes. And um so there was a time where I felt like, oh my God, am I not using myself to the full potential? Am I not using my brain to its full capacity? But those thoughts didn't last too long because I actually enjoyed what I did. And one thing, hospitality comes naturally to me. I love people. I am one of those rare people that love people. So I was like, it only makes sense to do this. As well as in high school, I had a science chemistry teacher, Dr. Omni, told me, you are going to be the smartest pastry chef in the world. And I think you're wasting your brains going to be
Wow.
a pastry chef. And I was like, you sound just like my dad. And I
Mhm.
understood what they were saying because it was like on paper, it would make sense for me to go into something that maybe quote unquote, I don't know, used a little bit more of your brain. I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
hospitality, it can be stressful too. And I remember in college, there was a time where at Europe High, they sent the schedule out and I was not on the schedule. For some reason, the schedule I received, my name was not there. And I started boohooing. And I was like, I'm fired. And I remember calling my dad. And my dad was saying, why are you crying? I was like, because I lost my job. Like they fired me and didn't even tell me. And this is just a little business nugget that my dad gave me. He was like, Maya, I do want you to know that a business will continue to go on with or without you, but
Mhm.
you also have to have another plan in place. And so that just comes from my dad and always having a plan and having a backup plan too. Um, and that was like, dang, okay, yeah, this operation will continue to move without me. But in the same token, it taught me, okay, you probably should have a plan and like create,
Mhm.
goals and stuff like that. Um, But I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, this is not what I want to do, even outside of college. And I mean, you have tough days as being a restaurant manager. I mean, I've had plenty of stories of people yelling at me,
Mm,
people, saying, wow, I mean, I'm a Black woman. So I'm a young Black woman. And like, you're the manager of this $4.3 million steakhouse. Like, where is your manager? Where is the manager? It can't be you. And so stuff like that didn't really second guess. It actually gave me a little confidence that you
right,
underestimated me.
right.
I don't think there was really ever okay. Out of college, like
There's
when
a
I was in
moment.
college,
Okay.
yeah, my senior year, applying for jobs, obviously, I was like, okay, I got to get a big girl job. I don't want to be a front desk agent. And so Georgia State was big on management and training programs, putting their students through them. And so I was applying to everyone, like MGM, Hyatt,
Mhm.
Durham Inn, Hilton, Marriott. I applied to every single management and training program. And my backup said no to me. So I applied to Durham in their management and training, and they were my second. They were going to be my second backup plan if at this point I hadn't heard anything from the Omni or Marriott at that time, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get Durham. Like this
Yeah,
is it.
yeah.
And they called and they told me no, and I at that point I was like, this was what April. This was April, no, March of 2017, and I graduated May of 2017, and I was like, I don't have a job. And
Mm,
so at that moment, I was like, wow, my backup plan said no to me. And so I was supposed to be saying no to them. And that was probably my second no because MGM was my first no.
mm.
Um, and just talking with my mentor at that time, we just knew that wasn't the best fit. Casinos is a little bit more, that's more on a spiritual level. So my mentor gave me a different side and was like, Maya, that's a lot of gambling. I know you're very spiritual. Maybe that's why it didn't work out. And I was like, okay. And then Durham said no. And so that jury said no. And I was very hurt. And so it was a couple of weeks until I heard from Marriott. And I actually got Marriott, Hyatt, and Omni in the same week. And so that's when I knew
You're
I'm
like,
back,
wow.
guys. I'm
Yeah.
back. But that was a moment of like, I did kind of second, like, okay, what am I going to do in life? I cannot graduate with a, this was just my personal goals, guys. There's nothing out there to people, that did take the front desk agent position after their 4-year degree. But that just wasn't part of my plan. I've been doing it for my past 2 years. I was like, I'm big on not
You
becoming
wanted to
stagnant.
elevate and to progress and to do, something different. And you had done that and you had gotten the education, you had the experience. So I can understand that.
So that
Yeah.
was that. That was my one moment of where I second guessed hospitality, and I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
I'm screwed at this point."
Yeah.
But it all worked out. God, always has a plan,
Yeah.
and that just put things in perspective for me.
Yeah. It is interesting how, when we're faced with those disappointing situations, that in a way it actually still is nurturing and developing us. And and then it gives you a story to
Yeah,
tell so that when people ask about your journey, your career path, you're able to be, more vulnerable and compassionate because you're like, it was not a yes the whole
yeah,
ride,
hmm
and so you're building resilience, you're building those type of muscles that are also going to be necessary for your job. So when the
yeah,
person is yelling in your face at the restaurant, you were prepared even for that moment
yeah,
from
yeah,
having the rejection before.
yeah, and absolutely. And I'm a strong believer in what's meant for you. What God has planned for you is meant for you. And sometimes our plans don't align with the man above. So
Yeah.
just being patient and understanding, that he's not personally just in my life, he's never let me down. So
Yeah. Yes. So, as I was listening to you, I was one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask was, were you strategic and intentional about your career path, or did you go with the flow? And kind of what you shared to me sounded like a little bit of both. You kind of
yeah,
had to say, okay, this is what I'm pursuing, go for it. But then when things don't quite go as planned, be willing to flow and adjust. And so I
yeah.
think you did.
Um, just my personality, guys. I am not a go with the flow person. I know it's kind of crazy, but it's something I'm definitely working on, 100% working on. But I was definitely one of those kids, and it probably happened more in college when I was like, no, we have to have a plan. Like, we need to know what's happening next. What are we doing next? Why are we doing this? And so I've always had a plan since college of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. Now, has the plan changed? 100%. So
Yeah.
that is where some of that flexibility does come in, but it's changed in a good way for me. So it hasn't changed like drastically where, well, COVID changed it drastically
Okay.
for a moment.
Like, yeah, ma'am, have a seat. Thank you.
Yeah, changed it drastically for a moment. But in the grand scheme, it actually, kind of worked out. So I am a planner just by nature. That's just who I am.
Mhm.
But in that same token, like I was saying earlier, my plan doesn't always align with my higher power. And so I have to be understanding that, okay, God sees a different path for me
Yeah.
and have to be willing and opening to do that. So that's
Right.
where that comes in. And in the same token, mentors and people that are ahead of me that's been here, when they give me advice, my ears open, right? Like I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should try this path. You see
Right.
something in
Right.
me that maybe I can't see in myself right now. And that's kind of how I fell into HR. That's what I'm doing now. But yeah, I do remain flexible to the higher power and to people
Yes.
that are in higher positions
Yeah.
than I am.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the HR path that you've taken. So tell us about the company that you're with now, what you're doing, and just sort of its connection to the hospitality industry.
Yeah, so right now I am a senior TA specialist at HVMG, which is Hospitalities Ventures Management Group, who is based here out of Sandy Springs in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, and I've been doing this for about 7 months. It's crazy how time flies, but
Yeah.
I kind of fell into this due to post COVID. So pre COVID, I was with Marriott International for about 3 years, and I was a restaurant manager. So with Marriott, I had the opportunity to start in their Voyager program, which was their manager and trainee program at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando. So I did that for about 2 years. And so there I went through the manager and training program, and then I moved into an assistant restaurant manager at the steakhouse, which I was pretty much the interim manager. So I was the only manager running that establishment. That is probably the most important part of my career so far, just because the knowledge that I learned and the level of service
Mhm.
and actually working with servers that are career servers, right? People that been doing this for longer than I've been alive. And so that was so exciting, learning about so much different steaks and cuisines. It was so much fun, and I loved the stress that I had during that time, but it gave me so much knowledge. And so I did that at the steakhouse for about a year and a couple of months. And then I had the opportunity to go to New York City.
Ooh.
I know, it's always in a dream. I remember a kid, I was sitting in my bed and I'm like, and I would tell my parents, my mom knew this, I'm going to live in New York. And you people say manifesting and speaking like the tongue, the power of the tongue is strong. And so I do believe that. And I had the opportunity to go there and work in Times Square. Who gets that? I managed the restaurant there, the View. And that was really different than, our Southern hospitality and what we do down here, down South. But it was fun. It was good. It was exciting. But then Miss Coronavirus hit very hard.
Like, I'm here.
Yes, yeah. And
Everybody was just like,
what?
what?
And I remember it came, and y'all, it happened so quick. Like, New York is usually always busy. Like, we were near Broadway, right? Like, we were in Times Square. So, and I just remember the streets were ghost. We were busy one weekend, and then literally the following like 3 days empty. Like, it was crazy. How fast it impacted our business. And so I remember we had to pack our restaurant up. So we had to call all our servers off. And the managers had to come in, clear all the bar, put away all the pre-mixed drinks, like throw them away, cover everything. So that in itself gave a little rank in my plan. And so then I drove home. I came back to Atlanta because I didn't have family in New York City. And so my dad, I was so blessed to be able to have a house to come back to. And so my dad allowed me to stay with him. And so, I was just thinking, like all of us, oh, this is only like, what, 2
Yeah.
months? I'm still paying rent at my apartment in New York. I'm like, we're good. I'm going back. And then your furlough just keep getting pushed back.
Yeah, because the year just kept, it never, I mean, even at this point, we're still like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it just kept getting pushed back. And then eventually Marriott did let us go. I was, I'm not gonna lie, I was really sad and bitter at the same time because I was like, this is not the plan.
Yeah.
But
And
then
I've
I
worked
remember,
so hard,
yeah,
and just devastated,
yeah,
it's a dream being crushed.
yeah, it was a lot of emotions. And so then me being me, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Because we're not gonna just sit around here and collect unemployment and
Be
do
trapped.
all this. We need to do something to progress ourselves. And so I went to go get my master's at Georgia State. And while I was at Georgia State, my last few months, this was part of the plan, was like, okay, we're wrapping up school. My program was a year long. It was accelerated. So they pushed 2 years into one. It was accelerated. And April was coming around. I was like, okay, I got to find a job. Like, I'm
Mhm.
graduating again. We got to find a job. So I started to apply. I got a lot of no, heard, but I didn't hear back from a lot of people I applied for. And so at this point, I was applying for a mix of food and beverage manager and HR because food and beverage was all I knew. And so that's where I went. And then I met Andrew Pace, who is the reason why I'm at HVMG on an industry board meeting that Georgia State hosts. And we were talking. He passed my resume along to my current director, Sunny. And I actually went to her. I went to HVMG trying to get a restaurant manager position, food and beverage. I was trying to get back in the hotel.
Mhm.
And because HVMG, we're a third party management hotel group. So we do own, like, we manage Hilton's, Hyatt's, Marriott's, boutiques, independents, all of that. And so I was trying to get back into restaurants. And then I told her I made the mistake, but I didn't make the mistake. I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm interested in HR. And at this time, she was building her team of talent acquisition specialists.
Okay.
So my current position was not here pre-COVID. HVMG went from a decentralized hiring to centralized. So now we do all hourly recruitment for all of our 52 hotels. And so now I'm in HR, post my master's program and post restaurant management, but it's still in hotels. And so that's what excites me, is because even though I'm on corporate, I still do get to experience some of that on property. I'm working with those on property managers. So that's a little bit of like how I ended up here as a
Mhm.
senior TA. Yeah, it's just crazy how things work out.
Yes, very, very interesting. And again, like, I was kind of saying earlier, I can see how all of your experiences tie into what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Because many of the positions that you are helping to, hire for
Yeah.
properties, you either you've done it, or I've had experience with people who've done those particular
Mhm.
roles.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about what your days are like. So you say, okay, I do talent acquisition, but what does that look like on a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah. So funny how I was saying earlier, I knew retail was not for me because I didn't like selling. Funny how God works. I'm
Right.
selling.
Also
So
you.
basically, right now I have about what, seven, maybe eight properties, so eight hotels. And what my day to day looks like, I typically come into the office, well, my home office, and um, it's a lot of, and I let people know what I do. It's kind of repetitive. It's absolutely repetitive, but each property has certain number of positions open in different markets. So I have two hotels in Arizona. I have about three hotels in North Carolina, South Carolina. Um, I have hotels in Kentucky. So I have a great range of hotels across the United States. And so what I do is I'm the person you talk to if people will apply online, and I reach out to the candidates who have applied. And so I'm that first person. I'm the first phone screen. I'm the one who sets up your in-person interview with that food and beverage manager or that front office supervisor or housekeeping manager. And so that's kind of what I do today. I'm on the phone. It doesn't bother me. At first, I was a little worried, about that, but it doesn't bother me now because I am a person that does like routine. So it doesn't bother me too much. I do sometimes miss the spontaneity of restaurants, but it's okay. And so I set up those initial interviews with the hiring managers. And then I'm also the person responsible for sometimes running your background checks. So I
Mhm.
do a lot of the admin work of the hires, like of new hires coming onto the property. I also, in my role, am a senior. So senior just being to the fact that I do corporate recruiting. So I recruit for our corporate positions. Some of them being like right now, I'm recruiting for an investment analyst position, which is part of our construction and development team. And then I also do the accounting position. So I have like a tax specialist position open. And then my very favorite role out of all of the roles that I'm doing right now is probably my hotel operations manager. And this role is pretty much task force. It's a person that goes from hotel to hotel, filling in for either like front desk managers, food and beverage managers, or the GM, right? And so they fulfill that role. And that personally is very close to my heart because when I was at Marriott, that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go onto their OSR team and do task force. So now the fact that I'm hiring for this exact role is just kind of crazy
Just
and it's
interesting.
fun. But that's kind of what my day to day. It's a lot of Excel, a lot of
Mhm.
calendar, organization, kind of
Mhm.
sort of setup. But I still get that talk. I get to talk with people, and
Right.
that's probably my favorite part.
Yeah. So, in kind of thinking about this current role, what would you say is probably the biggest learning curve or surprise that you've had? Maybe something you didn't expect, and then you realize,
I still have this to today. I didn't know how hard recruiting actually was.
mm,
I just didn't understand that people don't want to work. Okay, so that was just hard for me.
mhm,
Coming from the background that I was raised, I mentioned before, my dad is big on working. He is big on a work ethic, and I just never understood that there are actually people out there
you
who
don't
don't
really
want to
wanna
work.
work. Yeah, yeah,
And that is just so hard to me, especially in the field today. That I mean, there's a lot of people that lost their jobs, and so I'm just like, why am I struggling as a recruiter to find positions? But I do understand a lot of people lost faith in the hospitality industry because we were the hardest hit industry because of Corona. So I get that. I think that was the hardest thing for me to learn is like these some of these people actually don't want to work. And so they'll apply, but they're just applying. In the beginning of my role, they were applying because you had to apply for some states to continue to get, your unemployment benefits. And that was like, dang, okay. I think that's probably the hardest thing for me to learn. And then two, this role taught me. I'm naturally an organized person, but organized in a sense of admin side of it. That was just a different side just because as a restaurant manager, that's probably like the last thing on our mind was like admin paperwork. That's
right.
literally the last thing we do at the end of the night is the admin side. But um, I think it's just people's work ethic is the biggest, like, it was the biggest shock to me in this role and how I'm struggling to recruit in
Right.
this market. To God, that's probably the hardest or the learning curve.
Yeah. So what have you found to be a perk in which you've um enjoyed the most?
I think probably is now working with corporate roles. So more of not saying that people that do the hourly positions aren't dedicated to what they do, but let's be honest, like most people use front desk as a stepping stool,
Stepping
right?
temporary.
Yeah, to get in, to get somewhere, and I'm all here for that. That's what I did. That's how I moved. But the corporate roles, I get to actually interact with people who have a passion for what they do and who have a career and who have so much knowledge. I think that's probably the thing about what I love the most about these corporate roles is learning what these people do on a day to day. Has been my favorite part. As stressful as it is to recruit corporately, because it is really competitive. I mean, the market is competitive. The same token why we're struggling for hourly is the same token why we struggle for corporate positions. But it's just you can tell the difference. You can hear the difference in the candidates and the way they speak, and when they're more interested in this position than just a traditional entry level position. So that's probably been my favorite part. And two, I'm big on learning and development. So that's ultimately where I would like to go within HR, but being able to help someone find the perfect role for them. So, like the other day, I had a young lady apply for front desk, and just in speaking with her, I didn't feel in my heart that she was the best fit for front desk. And so I just asked her, I was like, what do you love doing? Like, what do you enjoy doing and things of this nature? And she was telling me, and I was like, hey, actually, I think you might be a better fit for this
Yeah.
role. And so
Yeah.
actually, yeah, helping those people find what they have a passion to do for, while also obviously they need a job, but able to do that and align her with the things she loves with the perfect job is kind of another thing I love doing too. And I wish I got to do that more, but our work industry right now is just so weird that sometimes that learning and development piece is kind of tough just in the market right now.
Okay.
But when I can do it, I do it.
I love that. And just in listening to you share about that, it gave me that flashback to when you spoke about when you sat in your counselor's office and you were like, this is what I'm setting out to do. But then she was able to redirect you to an option that, would actually be a better fit
Better.
or, for what you ultimately needed to be able to do. And I love that you're in this industry and that you're doing that because yes, it's a job, but it's still impacting lives and I'm just all about inspiration. And so,
Yeah.
even in HR, you are sharing hospitality, you are helping people get to reach a goal that they have, and that's
Hmm.
to get a job.
Yeah.
So I love that. I do kind of want to wrap our conversation by hearing you share about the later phase of your life. So later is not here yet, but what do you think you want to do in the future?
Yeah. Well, I'm a planner, so girl, I already know. What's nice myself go potentially is ultimately I do want to teach. So I want to go back and teach at a university and teach hospitality courses. And the reason I want to do that is because the reason I'm here today is because of my professors. I had such amazing professors at Georgia State, and they inspired me so much to do what I'm doing. They got me here. Um, a lot of them have put me in, the right room or in front of the right people. And so I want to be able to do that for another young person who is actually trying to pursue and better their future by going to college or maybe, something like that. I want to be that helping hand to a young person to go somewhere. So that's ultimately that's the long haul. But right now, I do want to continue to grow in the HR realm, staying here, whatever that might look like. I would love to go into the learning and development side of that. Specifically on like leadership side, so like GMs and managers, just giving them courses or tools to be a better leader is something where I would love to do, or even the mid-level, so where some employees are like at that mid-level trying to excel to those GM positions, is something I would love to do. But I think I can say this right now. It's funny how God works. I mean, the plan changes so much. But I think HR is probably where I see myself staying.
Yeah.
Especially, I would love to be able to stay with HVMG just because they're growing so much. And so I know a lot of people my age, like we tend to go where the growth is, and that is true. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I am also kind of old school where I do want to stick with the company and be able to grow with that company and say, hey, I'm the one that caused this company to get here. So that is some passion of mine, is to be able to stick with one company and just grow, and they create new positions as I grow, right? Because the company's growing like that. So still grow within hospitality. I say this, I don't see myself going anywhere other
For
than
right now, at
hospitality.
least, from what I know, at least.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see myself going anywhere outside of hospitality. And then it's teaching. I do want to teach at the end of the day, like when I'm like, you know, got more wisdom, have more wisdom to share and
More
impart on
stories,
others.
more
But
stories
yeah,
to tell.
yeah, that's just where I see myself going, in my professional realm of like life.
Yes. Awesome. Wow, Maya. Wow. I mean, what an impressive story. And even, I mean, you're so young, but you've had all of these different experiences, and I definitely see like exciting and great things for you. And I think
Aw,
that when that day comes when you are a professor, I do believe that your students are going to absolutely love you. And so whether they are, the college students or whether they are people that are coming to you for that, that intense training so that they can get to the next level in their career or both,
Yeah.
I know that you will thrive and do very well when that time comes.
Thank you.
So thank you so very much for joining me on Pineapple Talks. Again, we're all about just inspiring hospitality connoisseurs and enthusiasts. And so I know that your sharing today is going to give that person that's in the industry the nudge to keep striving and to keep
Yeah.
pushing. And for those that are just looking for some inspiration, they're going to get it from hearing your story. So thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I was so excited to do this, and I'm very happy that you are providing a platform like this for individuals to listen. And it's good. This is the only way that you grow in the industry. It's hearing someone who's maybe in the position that you want to be in and listening to their story. So thank you, and please continue to do this.
Absolutely. I will definitely do that. Alrighty, so we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share Pineapple Talks.